what did it mean to your family that, JD Dillard, the director, wanted them involved in the project and got you in touch with you guys so early in the process?
Yeah, so I think it was very important. Jesse's story has been held so closely to the family and was honestly just so personal. The thought of a project sort of kind of being pursued without us involved gave us much angst. But because JD and I think the background of his family, his dad being a pilot, it meant so much for him to have us engaged and to really be able to understand sort of the family's sort of take on this and to walk us through the journey. So it truly meant a lot, and it really helped develop the relationship. I think the entire devotion team, the cast, the crew, but it really helped us all feel like family. And when you're sharing your family's personal story, it means even that much more.
Absolutely. And, when speaking with Jonathan Majors, what really stood out about his approach to learning about Jesse and how he wanted to do his legacy justice in the film?
Yeah, well, Jonathan is such an incredible talent, and he takes his work so seriously, diving deep into a role and really trying to embody it in a way. And so we were very very fortunate to have an opportunity for him to get to meet two of Jesse's brothers very early on in the process. And they weren't still with us at the time of the film's completion. So it felt like we had sort of their blessing and the blessing of others. But, he dove not only into sort of what's out there, sort of historically about my grandfather, but also making sure that he had those anecdotes from the family and, dove deep into the letters, like really tried to make sure that he was bringing Jesse's character to life in a real sort of multi-dimensional way. And even after the filming has wrapped, we recently found a record of Jesse's sort of draft card that had never been seen by the family, and we were able to share it with him, and he was just blown away. And the fact that he was like, "Oh, I recognize his handwriting," and it meant so much to him. So even after we've wrapped, I think the character still sort of means so much, and we're just grateful to have that relationship with him.
That's amazing. And what was it like to go on set and see the movie being shot?
That was really surreal. I had an opportunity to go down a few times with various family members, and from just one understanding how a movie is made, which was like completely like over my head, but from what it took to get those big warbirds in there and seeing the planes, and honestly the set design was amazing. Like you're out on this runway on the set and getting to see just all of the level of detail and work that goes into it. But when you see the film come together, I was with my nephew recently, and he was like, "Oh my gosh, the scene where they're out on the bridge, and it happened to be like a crazy weather day in Georgia, and so it worked out so perfectly." So just kind of being like an insider, it was really like being at Disneyland or something, but getting it to all come see it all come together was really great.
That's awesome. And your grandmother Daisy is so lovingly portrayed by Christina Jackson. How important was it to have her story shown as well?
Yeah, so I will tell everybody the single most important character that the devotion team had to get right was the portrayal of Daisy. With my grandfather, he was killed when my mom wasn't even 2 years old. So we've kind of always had an idea of who he was and sort of based off of folks that knew him, but that personal relationship really wasn't there. But it was such a different story with Daisy. I grew up with her. She was one of my biggest role models, and I am honored to be able to carry on the family legacy. And it's a lot of how I saw her sort of carry herself. And so it was so important that they get that right. And I could not imagine a better actress to come and play my grandmother. I think Christina is someone that just has such a sheer amount of emotional intelligence, and she brought that and the care and sort of wit and funniness and all of the things and all of the stories and all the conversations that we've had, everything from seeing, a nail polish color that I mentioned that my grandmother loved and just like a very casual conversation. And I see her wearing it in the film. So it was those little tiny details of just being heard and being listened to. But I think beyond that, it was so important for Daisy to be portrayed in the film because Jesse was the first, but Daisy was also the first. And I think the idea of a military spouse and that support and what it means to go through that, and for her to also be alone and pioneering that in many, many ways, we're glad that a glimpse of her story was able to be shared on the screen as well.
That's awesome. And you know, Devotion received a lot of praise, particularly for Major's performance. But what does it mean for millions to be learning about your grandfather's story?
It's really daunting. I think we always had a idea that the Jesse and Tom story, was worthy of, having this sort of acclaim to it. But they're your family members, and again, we had held the story so close, and so I certainly felt a lot of anxiety about what does this mean when more people know about the story, but to just bring awareness to the heroes that they were, and honestly the inspiration that they bring. I've been so fortunate, like over the course of my life, and now even more that Devotion is sort of in the ecosystem of people coming up to me and telling me just how much it meant for my grandfather and what he did and how it inspired them, and now they're a pilot, or they are leading this sort of career now due to the sacrifice that he made. And I think it's an important story for our country, particularly at a time where things are kind of fraught and so divisive. And so being able to share that on the world stage has been really, really important. And they are beyond deserving. They were, such humble individuals that had a passion and a dream. And so I think a lot of people can relate to just wanting to go out and do what you love.
For sure. And I imagine the first time you got to see the movie, you know, it must have been quite overwhelming. What was it like to for you and your family to take that all in, to see that playing out on the big screen?
Yeah, I, cry every single time I see the film, but that first time we got to take it in was, amazing because it had been just a lot of emotions and such a long journey, not even just film production, but before that, and obviously having the book Devotion by Adam Makos, and just a lot of time that we've got to spend with the Hudner family, and just really, it was almost a release. And it was, at that point you knew like it's going to be in the world. It's okay. It's great. But they did such a good job, and it's emotional in a good way. Like it's cathartic and truly, inspiring in so many ways. But I was recently flying and got to see it for the first time on a plane, which I think is a fitting way for Devotion to be consumed. But knowing a million times like what's going to happen, and knowing the history, and it's based off of historical events, but it's still such a gut punch and a reminder of what we lost when we lost Jesse. But just so beautiful to have it memorialized in film.
For sure. And my last question, you touched on it a bit earlier. You know, even though the movie takes place in the 1950s, the themes and takeaways are still so prevalent and important. Can you speak to the importance of that story being told today?
Absolutely. I think there are a number of sort of themes throughout Devotion, but the inspiration and just again being able to come from humble beginnings, to dare to dream for something big despite whatever challenges you have or may overcome. And then the thought of leaving this lasting legacy, and what it means for us to embrace our history and our past. But there's so many inspiring figures, and the way that the commonality and the threads, there's more that you know brings us together than separates us. And so I hope that folks will recognize that, and that there is a lot of real value in knowing our full history, and all of the individuals that contributed to that fabric. And so Devotion is such a good portrayal of that, and getting to see what they did at that time to overcome sort of the conventions and the norms, to create a true brotherhood, this friendship, and the heroes that they were. And they did it all for a country that they knew could be better and was striving to be better. So it's an amazing American story, and we're glad to just have, to be a small part of it, and that the fabric of that gets to live on.